A mother tied her beautiful young daughter to a chair and started tickling her. Then the girl did something. What happened next shocked everyone who saw it, so the video is going to be very entertaining. Make sure you watch it till the end. Friends, in a quiet American suburb, there was a house that looked completely normal from the outside, but within its walls was hidden a terrifying secret. This was the home of Sarah, a neuroscientist, and her young daughter Emily. Sarah took off her lab coat and looked at the old, sturdy wooden chair placed in front of her. Her eyes were fixed on that chair as if it were an enemy. This was the same chair that had been lying in their garage for years, and today it was set in the middle of the house. Emily sat in the other corner of the room, a deep shadow of fear on her face. Her eyes were locked on her mother, and she couldn't gather the courage to speak. Sarah turned toward Emily with a faint smile. She knew how hard this was for Emily, but there was no other way left. This was the family's last chance to end that dark chapter of their past. Sarah asked softly, "Are you ready?" Emily nodded silently. She stood and slowly walked toward the chair, every breath of hers heavy. Sarah sat her down and tightly strapped her wrists and ankles with leather belts. Emily didn't resist. There was only one question in her eyes. Will this work? Sarah was wondering the same thing. It had been over a year since Emily's father, John, disappeared. The police had found no clue. The only thing left was Emily. That night, Emily had seen something that her mind had erased on its own. Sarah's research revealed that under extreme tickling, the part of the brain linked to stress and danger becomes active. This was called a fear memory. If done correctly, it could bring suppressed memories back. The method was dangerous, but they had no other choice. Sarah pulled out strange, feather-like instruments. They looked like odd surgical tools. Emily's breathing quickened. She knew what was about to happen. Sarah began slowly tickling the soles of Emily's feet. At first, Emily laughed, a nervous, forced laugh. But Sarah increased the pace. The laughter turned into screams. Emily shut her eyes and her body started shaking with unease. Sarah moved to tickle her ribs and stomach. It wasn't tickling anymore. It was an attack, a psychological assault striking directly at Emily's mind. Suddenly, Emily stopped laughing. Her eyes slowly opened, but they were empty, without emotion. Sarah stopped tickling. Silence filled the room. Emily slowly lifted her head and looked at her mother. Sarah's heart pounded hard. Then Emily began to speak, but her voice wasn't hers. It was strange, robotic, flat. Coordinates: 51.5074 degrees north, 0.1278 degrees west. Cold room. She spoke slowly, words that Sarah could hardly make sense of. Then she said another line. -20 degrees Celsius. Code: 7-3-1-9-0. Sarah quickly pulled out a small notepad and wrote down every word Emily said. Emily's eyes glowed strangely, as if she was in another world. Then suddenly she went silent. Her eyes returned to normal, and she shook her head. "Mom, what happened? I don't remember." Sarah quickly unstrapped her, tears in her eyes. "It worked," she whispered. "It worked." Emily stared at her, not understanding what had just happened. Sarah hugged her tightly. Sarah checked the numbers and coordinates Emily had spoken. It was a bank locker code that John had opened in London, and the cold storage facility's temperature and code. All of it matched the very day he disappeared. Under the effect of tickling, Emily had unlocked that closed part of her brain and revealed her father's final plan. This wasn't the story of a horrific incident, but of a mother's unshakable belief and a daughter's hidden strength. Tickling was just a painful method, the mother's last ray of hope. The mysterious words from Emily's lips had reignited a secret that had been silent for over a year. Sarah immediately started digging through John's old files and documents. 51.5074 degrees north, 0.1278 degrees west. These coordinates led to a bank branch in the heart of London, the same address listed in John's business records. -20 degrees Celsius and code 7-3-1-9-0 were still a mystery. But Sarah knew this was the next clue, one that would lead them somewhere else. Within the next 48 hours, Sarah and Emily made the hardest decision of their lives. Without informing the police, they flew to London. They knew John's secret was enormous, and if they told the police, they might never reach it. Arriving in London, their first stop was the bank. It was an old, grand building with a unique, hushed stillness. Sarah told the bank manager about John's disappearance and asked for permission to open his locker. After legal procedures and ID checks, the manager led them to the locker. The lock clicked open, and Emily watched nervously. Inside was a small, old wooden box. Inside the box were a plain black hard drive and a folded piece of paper. On the paper were only 2 words, "Cold Room." And below it, the same code Emily had spoken, 7-3-1-9-0. Sarah picked up the hard drive. It was a special kind of drive that couldn't be connected to any regular computer. It required a unique interface. John had arranged this kind of security because he had something to hide, something very dangerous. The two left the bank and took a taxi straight to the place where cold room facilities were located. It was a massive concrete building in a deserted industrial area on the outskirts of the city. Silence surrounded it. At the main entrance was a digital keypad. With trembling fingers, Sarah entered the code Emily had recalled. A long beep sounded, and the heavy metal door slowly creaked open. Inside, the temperature was brutally cold, with misty air everywhere. On both sides of the hallway were massive freezer units, humming with an eerie sound. They walked slowly down the hall, their breath turning to vapor in the icy air. Emily still felt the tickling sensation in her mind, as if walking through a nightmare. They reached a door labeled Unit 9. This was the very unit mentioned in John's documents. Sarah opened it, and both froze in shock. In the middle of the freezer, covered in a thick layer of ice, stood a large glass container. Inside it, their father, John, sat in a strange posture, as if sleeping. His eyes were closed and he wore a special suit. He was unconscious, but alive. Next to him lay a small, glowing metal box. Tears streamed down Emily's face. "Dad!" she screamed, but her voice was lost in the freezing air. Sarah stood frozen in disbelief. This wasn't a case of abduction. It was self-preservation. Why had John locked himself in here? Sarah spotted the control panel outside the container. There was a slot perfectly sized for the hard drive they had found in the locker. She slid it in. The screen lit up with a message. Data transfer in progress, 100%. Decryption in progress, 100%. Suddenly, a red light began flashing outside the container. At the same time, a siren blared from the end of the hallway, and a massive door slammed shut. Sarah spun around. At the end of the hall stood a man. He wasn't a police officer. His clothes were ordinary, but his eyes gleamed with cruel intent. "I knew you'd come here, Sarah," he said, "and now, all of John's work is mine." Sarah realized the truth. John hadn't simply disappeared. He had hidden himself here, running from someone. And now, that someone had finally found them. And the video also ends here. If you liked it, please like the video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.